In this episode of the Pigskin Dispatch podcast, we're going to talk about the Giants 100 top 100 players list out by the NFL this year and what we think about it. And it's all coming up with the list and more in just a moment.
This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history. Your host, Darin Hayes, is podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darin Hayes of PigskinDispatch.com. Welcome once again to the Pig Pen, your portal to positive football history, and welcome to another edition of the New York Giants 100, the 100th anniversary of the New York Football Giants. Tonight, we're going to take a look at part of the list of what came out on Giants.com. It's the top 100 New York Giants players for the 100th anniversary. And this was selected by some pretty big names and historians for the Giants. It was an independent committee of award-winning journalists, NFL and Pro Football Hall of Fame executives, and some super fans that have ranked the Giants' top 100 players, and it was presented by Bud Light. It was on Giants.com. The top 100 players committee consisted of Bob Papa, Pete Abonte, Ernie Accorsi, Judy Battista, John Birdie, Linda Cohn, Vinny DiTrani, Bob Glauber, Joe Horrigan, Jay Horowitz, Peter King, Greg Myers, Paul Schwartz, and George Willis. Now, we've had one of those here on the show, Gary Myers, great Giants author and writer, covered the Giants for many, many years. So some great authorities, Bob Papa, who covers all their games, and of course, Ernie Accorsi and some of the other ones, Peter King and Joe Horrigan with the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame. So it's just some great people that have put this together. But I don't know that I totally agree with their list. I think there might be a little bit of modern day bias to this. So I guess maybe the first place to start off with this is maybe we'll go over the top 10 and just so you can see who they have on there, which I don't have any problem with the way their top 10 is or the order that they have it in. They have, of course, LT Lawrence Taylor, the great middle linebacker at number one. And there's no argument from anybody because he's probably the greatest defensive player that's ever played in the National Football League. So probably the most valuable player ever in Giants history. Roosevelt Brown comes in number 2 on this list. Don't have a problem with that either. What a great player he was. Mel Hein at number 3, great two-way player, center, linebacker on defense. Frank Gifford, very good back and great player for the Giants. Had some big plays for them in his time of playing. Michael Strahan, leading sack, a master for the Giants, held this great defensive line play that he had during his era, a couple Super Bowls. Emlyn Tunnell, we talked about him recently and all the great defensive plays that he made, and as a special teams returner, returning kicks and punts, just a very valuable weapon for the Giants during his time. Harry Carson played alongside LT at linebacker, and what a valuable person he was. So number 7 on the list. Eli Manning, number 8, 2 Super Bowl championships. Great player, set a lot of passing yardage plays for the Giants. Sam Huff, a great linebacker at number 9. And Andy Robustelli comes in at number 10. Now, following right after them, let's go to the next top 10. 11th was Phil Simms. 12th was Y.A. Tittle. 13th, Charlie Connerly. Tiki Barber was at number 14. Tuffy Lehman's at 15. Amani Toomer at 16. Might be a little bit high for Amani Toomer. Carl Banks at 17. Mark Bavaro at 18. Ken Strong at 19. And Jimmy Patton at number 20. Now, many of these we've talked about already in our Giants 100 series, and we've got quite a bit of history, so maybe you could check them out. But now let's go into what I think is a problem with this 100. I have a problem with that number 47. You have a punter, Sean Landeta. Great punter, great player, very consistent. But you have him at number 47 above names like Ray Flaherty and Otis Anderson, David Deal, Tom Landry, Ward Cuff, Jumbo Elliott. He's more valuable. JPP, Jason Pierre-Paul. Sean Landeta, the punter, was a more valuable player in the Giants echelon than he was. Jim Burt is 64. Cal Hubbard, who's in a Hall of Fame, number 66 on the list. Brandon Jacobs, and Red Badgrow are 69 and 70. Antonio Pierce at number 71. Pepper Johnson all the way down at 75. And you're telling me that Sean Landeta was more valuable to him. Now, let's just look at some of Sean Landeta's stats here, and I'm going to have to look off screen here to get some of these things. But he averaged for his career for the Giants, averaged about 43.4 yards per punt, which in that era, okay, not horrible, not the greatest in the world. 1 year, he averaged 37 yards per punt in 1988, but only played one game. I think he suffered an injury that year. But he was consistent, but a good punter, not good player, but I don't know that he belongs on that number 100 list. Somebody that probably does belong on that list that's not on there is Ed Danowski. Ed Danowski, we had a great show on him. Ed Danowski won 2 NFL championships for the New York Giants, like playing quarterback. He was in 1 Pro Bowl, 2 times he was an All-Pro. Now, his numbers aren't lofty. He had 44 interceptions to 37 touchdowns, had 7 years, all with the Giants. But 2 NFL championships in the 1930s, I think is a pretty big deal. There's not too many quarterbacks, save Eli Manning and Phil Simms, that have 2 championships while they played with the New York Giants. As a matter of fact, they have Fran Tarkington on the list, but not Ed Danowski. Fran Tarkington, a great player, but probably better known as a Giant, or as more than a Giant, a Viking. And, he did have some great games. I think he belongs on the 100 list, by the way, Fran Tarkington, but not without Ed Danowski not on there. The other name that sort of surprises me that's on there above him is Jeff Hostetler. Hostetler, great career, had some really nice season filling in the 1 year for the Giants, and took them quite a ways there. Had a great run. But Ed Danowski did it 2 times in 6 years, or 2 times in 7 years. I think that deserves him on the list above, a punter or, some quarterbacks maybe that didn't play all that much. And I'm not even saying Jeff Hostetler. I'm sorry, I had the wrong name. Kerry Collins is on that list, and Ed Danowski isn't. Now, Collins, again, a good player, but got bumped around the league, and even for the Giants, Kerry Collins, his stats for the Giants, he played for 5 years, did not take them to a championship. I believe he did make a Pro Bowl as a Giant. He was in 2 Pro Bowls during his career, but he played on, a handful of teams. And I don't know. No, he was not in the Pro Bowl as a Giant. He was in Pro Bowl as a Carolina Panther and once as for Tennessee. So, but Kerry Collins is on that list, and Ed Danowski's not. So, I don't know that I totally agree with that, and I think maybe that should have been looked at. Maybe a little bit of bias to the modern player, especially Sean Landeta being above some of these guys. I don't know. I really have a problem with that. But it's a great list, and it's other than that, and just my one beef, and I think some others have commented about too, but not Danowski. I know some folks have commented to me about it, and we'd love to hear your opinion. pigskindispatch@gmail.com. You can send that in, and we'd love to hear about it, and we'll maybe even put something on that you have comments on there. And who were some of the folks maybe that you were disappointed to see on the list? One guy I was glad to see made that list was Jason Sehorn. I think he was really a special weapon, and too bad the injuries got in his way, because he really could have been a special player for the Giants. I was glad he made it. But Saquon Barkley was all the way down at 95 on this list. which I found a little bit disappointing. If I talked about the modern day bias, well, there's a guy probably that should have been bumped up under. He carried that offense here for the last few years before going to the Eagles, and maybe had a little bit better career than some of the other folks that were above him on this list. But again, we'd love to hear your thoughts, and it's a great list to celebrate the Giants 100, so I definitely want you to check it out. Giants.com, top 100 players. You can Google it or go to Giants.com. And, that's what you're going to see, some of those players that were talked about on there. We're going to have some of them coming up on some future shows to talk about the New York Giants 100 season, because we're talking about it this every Monday, and love to hear more about these guys and what they did for the Giants and during their careers. So until next time, everybody, have a great Gridiron Day.
That's all the football history we have today, folks. Join us back tomorrow for more of your football history. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. Special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.